Redskins is that they were getting a young player who is proven for a cheap price. And I do kind of like some of the safeties that potentially could be available in this year's draft class. And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later in our program today when we preview one of the real exciting matchups in a terrific week of football in Alabama LSU. But when I look at Ha Clinton-Dix, I just see a guy that his production speaks for itself and his age speaks for itself. So like you, Scott, I was surprised by, of all the trades, this is the one, and there had been some talk that the Packers might be looking to trade Ha Clinton-Dix. I just was surprised that they only got a 4th-round pick for him, and I am surprised that to see the Packers trade him, because one of the things that I was really impressed by, Brian Gutekunst, of course, the new general manager in Green Bay, had this last year was his first draft, and I really thought that the Packers had a heck of a draft. I love the way they moved up, moved down, traded picks, to be able to put themselves in position to get players that I really thought fit their team well. Especially the early focus on the defensive backs. And so to see all those young players brought in, to me, that's the only argument I can make, is that, well, when you have so many young, talented defensive backs, maybe you see a possible safety conversion of that group. But otherwise, it surprised me, as did the trade of Ty Montgomery. Not that I necessarily, of course, they traded Ty Montgomery to Baltimore Ravens, and if you saw the game last week, then you know that Ty Montgomery had the unfortunate fumble, coming out of the end zone and all that. But still, for a 7th-round pick to go to a team like the Ravens that have the number of running backs already on the roster that they do, it just feels like Ty Montgomery went from one running back committee to another running back committee. And again, a 7th-round pick. I mean, for a guy who is a proven NFL player, that's not much. But I'm in the Scot McCloughan line of thinking, in that you're still giving away draft picks, and if you're giving away draft picks, then that's one less opportunity you have to replace that. So to me, that was the head scratcher of the trades this year. I liked the Clinton-Dix move from Washington's perspective. I was surprised by the Green Bay's decision to trade him. Makes me wonder what's going on there. But also the Ty Montgomery trade. I understand why they traded him. I just don't understand necessarily why Baltimore brought him in. That surprised me. Do you have any thoughts on Ty Montgomery, the prospect or the player, and then maybe why he was traded from Green Bay, or why Baltimore wanted to bring him in?
Yeah, I do. The thing about it is, because he was coming out when I was in with the Redskins, yep. And we're looking for a running back that can catch the ball and also play in the slot. I think Baltimore is bringing him in, and it's just my opinion. It could be completely wrong, from the standpoint that he's a receiver. And of course, at Stanford, that's what he played.
Yeah.
The guy's a great kid, and he's going to work his tail off. But for a 7th, you're kind of just giving him away. You're saying, okay, we're done with you. We get anything, we're going to take it. But he's still young, and the guy can play football. Is he a receiver? Is he a running back? Is he, an H-back, something different? Who knows? But the guy has made plays, and there's a reason why, not just in college, but in the NFL, that made him, people talk about him and made him successful.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, to me, I've always been most intrigued by Ty Montgomery as a wide receiver, and I love the toughness and physicality that he showed in making that switch to running back. I don't think there's a lot of receivers that can make that switch. So tip of the cap for him to do that. But I personally, when I scouted him, I thought he was better in a straight line than he was laterally trying to make people, elude people in tight quarters. And of course, that's so important to the running back position. So I'm intrigued. I hope that Baltimore does give him a little bit more of an opportunity at wide receiver. And of course, that would make so much sense, because Green Bay seems like every year they're loaded at the wide receiver position. And part of that is because, again, going back to that rookie class, that Brian Gutekunst, the new general manager in Green Bay, and their staff that they brought in this year. So that's the thing. With Ty Montgomery, if he is a wide receiver in Baltimore, to me that makes a lot more sense because the Ravens historically have struggled at the wide receiver position, kind of developing their own talent. And the other thing that is intriguing to me is the fact that, this is a new Baltimore Ravens kind of a roster. I mean, everybody, of course, is going to focus on Joe Flacco and what the Ravens have done for a while now under John Harbaugh, but I'm sure or I'm sure you remember, Scott, that the Baltimore Ravens also made Lamar Jackson their second first-round selection this past year, along with the tight end Hayden Hurst. And so you have Hayden Hurst now, first-round pick, a tight end who almost has some wide receiver ability to him because he can be kind of nifty. You have Lamar Jackson, obviously a dynamic athlete, and all the things he can do. You have Ty Montgomery now. You have some very versatile weapons, and you're playing in a division that has a lot of pass rushers, but not a lot of linebackers who can cover in space. So to me, it's kind of an intriguing move by the Baltimore Ravens to try and diversify an offense that at least has a reputation of being one of the most traditional and most, frankly, kind of boring offenses in all the NFL. But they are not going to be that for much longer.
Well, the thing about it is, Rob, it's really cool. They win, and Ozzie Newsome doesn't make moves unless he sees the outcome of it. Yep. And that's why they've been so successful for so long. That's why they're an organization and have a chance every year to go to playoffs. Yep. Every year. I guarantee he knew exactly. And same with John, Harbaugh. Yeah. They knew exactly with trading for him and the compensation they gave up, they know they won. I guarantee it. Ozzie's sitting back laughing about it, saying, okay, great. We gave him 7th. We got a guy that can come in here and play for us and play for us soon and play for us well. And I know him to a T because, I've been around the general managers all the time. And he's one of the best by far. And he knew exactly what he wanted and what he identified, and he went and got it.
Well, exactly, especially for that price. I mean, that's somebody walking through the grocery store, intending to maybe purchase something else, and then just seeing that they're having a sale on something like, wow, this is just too good of a price. I have to consider this. And so to me, that's what's intriguing about it. It's not just the idea that the Ravens are bringing in yet another running back, because there's a lot of Alex Collins fans out there. There's a lot of a lot of fans out there of the talent that the Ravens already have at the running back position, but none of them have that breakaway ability. And Montgomery can fly, especially in a straight line. So whether it be a wide receiver, whether it be at running back, I kind of like the move because it does, again, give them a little bit more of a different look on offense. And again, I always try and look at who are you playing up against. The defenses in the AFC North, I think, are ones that you can take advantage if you have some dynamic weapons. Which finally leads us to the last trade that, at least as of press time, have been announced, and that is Demaryius Thomas, a veteran receiver, going from the Denver Broncos to the Houston Texans. And, of course, the Texans had a need at wide receiver with their speedster, Will Fuller, unfortunately tearing an ACL here recently. They have one of the NFL's absolute best players, and DeAndre Hopkins also catching passes. But at the same time, Demaryius Thomas, and this is a big body wide receiver, can go up and get the football. Makes a lot of sense with Deshaun Watson, what he had been able to do previously at Houston and as well in Clemson for a 4th-round pick. And then a swap of 7th rounders. So what did you see on this move, Scott? Do you like the move? You like the move for Houston? And what about for Denver? Is this just an acknowledgement of the fact that they do have some young wide receivers who have played pretty well for them so far?
Yeah, I think the main part was the fact I think Denver liked him, and the guy still has ability. I think it comes down to him making $14 million next year. Yeah. And get that off the book, and get it elsewhere, which I hate to say because I respect players big time, but I understand front office big time too. Yeah. they're two different things. You know, the thing about Demaryius, he can still play, and you know he'll do fine in Houston. He'll be just fine. You know, but Denver's like, okay, like you said, you got some young guys that we like, and I don't want to lock up this money and knowing in the offseason I'm going to have to cut them. So why not get something now instead of later?
Well, exactly. And that's why I really appreciate you coming on, Scott, because you are going to recognize that from more of a front office personnel. I remember you at one point early in our conversations years and years ago, and you said, I'm not a bean counter. I'm a scout. And I agree. I mean, I kind of that's the way I look at it as well. But you know, of course, that is part of it. And I think that this could be very much a financial move for the Broncos, as you said. Yeah. $14 million salary cap, and that contract moves up the next year after that. So yeah, I think that John Elway is looking to do a solid for Demaryius Thomas, put him in a position where he could be very successful in Houston because there is a need there, but also trying to clear out some dollars. Let's face it, the Broncos, even with Demaryius Thomas over the last couple of years, have not gone back to the promised land. And I don't know that at the stage in his career that he's in, that he necessarily is going to be the player to take somebody there. He can help, but I don't know that he's your number one wide receiver. And that's the beauty of this, is he's going to Houston where he's not going to be asked to be that. And, of course, he's not Will Fuller. He's not going to be the blazer that he was when he came out of Georgia Tech all those years ago. But his ability to go up and high point pass is going to give Deshaun Watson in Houston two receivers now who can just go up and just physically outman defensive backs, for the football. And again, I go back to the teams that are in that division. That's not a dominant division in terms of cornerback play. So the Houston Texans, who are one of the hotter teams in the NFL right now, I think got themselves a fairly significant boost to their offense. Again, for a day 3 selection, it is going to cost a lot of money financially for the Texans, but I'm fairly confident they'll be able to afford it, and I think they're going to be pretty excited about what Demaryius Thomas can bring them.
No, I agree. I totally agree. And the thing about it, when you make trades, of course the money is always an item, and the contract's always an item, but do you make your team better? And if you think you're a playoff team, all you think about in the front office is, let's make it better. Let's make the team stronger, the roster stronger. And, next year's next year, but if you feel you got a chance this year, take a shot at it. And then you can always change things when the season's over. Either re-sign them, renegotiate, or cut them. Yeah. And it's that's what when it comes to be a good GM, and there's a lot of them out there, is the fact that they can visualize how the roster's going to look next year, and then how much you're going to invest in a certain guy, knowing that you got another young guy that's not the good guy yet, but is close to getting there.
Yeah.
And that's why the draft's so important. That's how you build a roster. You can do it in trades, you can do it in free agency, but it's usually a short-term living. The draft is long-term living. It's 4 years, or 5 years, depending on first-round picks.
Yeah.
But it's that's how you build. But if you think you have a chance, I saw in Green Bay when we signed Reggie White.
Yep.
It's like, okay, he's an old guy. He's been around a while, But it was like, no, we're that close. Well, we're going to take this guy and sign him and give him a huge contract, and that's going to put us over the top. That's going to make us be a Super Bowl champion, which it did.
Yep.
And it's just like, wow, you sit back and say, okay, well, he's 30 years old and you're signing him, and, why not just wait for the draft and we'll take this guy and that guy. But if the organization with their vision identifies what they want and what they think they need to be a Super Bowl contender, then go get them. Go get them.
Yep, exactly. And that's one of the things that I really kind of applaud the teams that made some of these moves, because specifically for the Eagles, for example, I thought that what they